Hi. Have you ever wondered why all the consumer companies in India tend to trade at a slightly higher valuation multiple? The likes of the HULs and DMarts and Titans of the world? Or if I were to ask you, let's say, name five startups that you think are successful, and four, if not all five, would probably be in the consumer space. अगर मैं आपसे बोलूं कौन से यूनिकॉर्न्स है इंडिया में तो ज्यादातर नाम जो आएंगे वो कंज्यूमर स्पेस में आएंगे B2C कंपनीज विच आर टुवर्ड्स द कंज्यूमर सेगमेंट राइट and we know that most of the consumer stocks in India trade at higher multiples than the average market multiple that is there. Why does that happen, right? And the answer to that and a lot of other, advantages that India carries lies in the population demographics of India. So stay with me till the end and we'll see some fascinating insights about India's population and its demographics and why this demographic profile could be the single biggest advantage that we carry in the coming decade, right? So let's try and understand that. First up, a couple of quick charts for us, right? And this picked up from this website that is mentioned here. Three charts. Let me explain क्या है ये charts, क्या है इनमें. So population of each country distributed age-wise. Right, on the left side of each of the maps is the female population, on the right side of each of the maps is the male population. The construct that we are looking at is all the horizontal bars that you see are 5-year bars, so 0 to 4 years, 5 to 9 years, 10 to 14 years, and so on and so forth. Three countries considered: India, Japan, and China, right? And you'll note something very stark in all three of them. Indian population is predominantly heavy at the younger age groups. Consider Japan, where you see the peaks in terms of very high population distribution come at the age group of about 70, and there's another peak here which is at the age of about 40, 45, right? So very clearly a population that has aged a lot. China is somewhere in between, so you'll see China's population has big peaks around 45 years, and then you have another one around 29 years or so. If you were to actually consider median ages, if let's say I were to ask you what is the median age for each of these countries, for India generally the number is around 28 to 29 years. For China that number is about 38 to 40 years. For Japan that number is about 48 years or so, right? Now median age does not move linearly. So ऐसा नहीं है कि आज से 10 साल बाद हमारा median age 28 years होगा, because kids keep getting born and the elderly population keeps going away in that overall population distribution, right? So roughly what has been estimated, it's a good idea to actually go back and ask कि अच्छा चाइना का या जापान का जो median age है वो 28 years कब था, right? So we will note that China's median age was 28 in roughly the late 90s, somewhere between this period, right? And Japan's median age was 28 roughly around 1960s, right? And one interesting fact that we have is the next couple of decades for both Japan and China were really good, right? 60s, 70s were very good economic decades for Japan, and the 90s and early part of 2000 2010 was a very strong decade for China. So very clearly जो एक रॉ मटेरियल है, एक इंग्रेडिएंट है फॉर इकोनॉमिक ग्रोथ is a young productive population that peaks at a certain point, and that point seems to be this median age of 25 to 30 years in general, which is what we have right now, right? Japan is clearly aging. China also has a sort of a progression that is moving towards that. And if you read a little bit about China and their economic policies at this point of time, they are kind of trying to come up with a scenario where they do away with the challenges that come with their one child policy that they had established, right? India is a young population and basically is a sort of a powerhouse in terms of productive population at this point of time. If you were to create, let's say, a labor pool which is young and productive, high in productivity, that is where India scores big at this point, right? There's some other interesting facets to this. Now assume that we said there's female population, there's male population. Now let's say merge the chart, right? So we merge the chart. What you see on the right side here is India's population by age group. The light blue bars that you see are the distribution as of 2015, and the standing vertical lines that you see are a distribution as of 2050. Expected distribution. This is from the UN and has been picked up from an Economist article which came a few years back. So the population distribution, once again, you will find China is a little bit heavy in the middle ages, whereas India actually is much heavier on the younger ages. We'll do one more thing. We'll add two horizontal lines here, right? And these horizontal lines are above the age of 15 years and below the age of 60 years, which is the working age population that we are just considering, right? Now, the definitions might change from country to country. We actually take 15 to 64 years in the Government of India documents, पर हम यहाँ पे assume कर रहे हैं कि 15 से 60 साल, 15 to 60 years is the working age population, right? Now, if you actually were to just count it, in 2015, greater than 60 years, you had about 10% of the population. Less than 15 years, you had about 30% of the population. And in between 15 to 60 years, you had about 60% of the population. And the interesting part is, if you do the same analysis for 2050, you'll find 20% here, 20% above 60, and you'll still have 60% in the working age population, right? Which is remarkable, because for the next 3 decades or so, 60% of our population will be in the working age group. Now, that's not a small number, that's a very large number, and if we are able to provide jobs to them and they're able to kind of work, this is the segment that is going to earn, this is the segment that is going to pay taxes, this is the segment that is going to consume everything that's going to come, right? And that just gives you the size and scale of possibility of retail segments in India. That is why everybody is so bullish on the consumer segment in India. I mean, valuations aside, of course, valuations might have priced in some part of this growth in some of the stocks, but the important aspect to understand is this growth is going to continue for the next couple of decades in a lot of the sectors. And we can look at examples after examples of sectors, right? Mobile phone handset sales in India every year is north of 25 to 30 crore. We sell 25 to 30 crore new handsets every year in India, right? Half of which are smartphones, the other half are feature phones and all. We sell 2 crore two-wheelers in India every year, right? So the size and scale of the possibility of selling something to consumers in India is so large, which is what excites everybody in the retail, in the consumer, in the FMCG segment to try and set up a shop in India, right? That's the space that is there. And there are some other interesting, fascinating insights about this, right? So for example, if you were to look at the Gen Z population of India, right? If you were to actually take this is picked up from a report from BCG, and the Gen Z, which is 97 people born between 1997 and 2012, the Gen Z population of India is about 37 crore, 377 million, right? Gen Alpha, which is kids born after 2013, itself is another 30 crore. And if you add millennials to this, you're talking about 100 crore people who are in the age group of 0 to 45 in India at this point of time. That's a remarkably large number for a lot of growth that is going to come. And that's why all companies are trying to target the younger generations for their advertisements or marketing plans. If you kind of note this in terms of what is playing out, you'll be fascinated to know that if Gen Z of India was actually a country, this would be the third largest country by population in the world, right? This population of 37 crore is bigger than the population of United States, which is about 34, 35 crore, right? And if you were to take the Gen Alpha, that's the fifth largest country of the world after India, China, Gen Z, US, and then the fifth largest is Gen Alpha. So remarkable size and scale of demographic opportunity that exists. This is the segment that is going to kind of get jobs, earn, pay taxes, consume, be it housing, be it urbanization, be it autos, be it financial services, be it any kind of services that are catering towards the B2C segment. कोई भी service जो B2C segment की तरफ cater कर रही है, उस सब का consumption continuously इस segment के through बढ़ता रहेगा. All we need to do as an economy is ensure good education, good skilling, and ensure that jobs are created. And this growth might just continue for years to come, right? A quick disclaimer here. This is not a recommendation about any of the consumption stories in India, right? Purely because the valuation in some of those might already be pricing in some of this growth, right? So you have to be careful when you evaluate something from an investment perspective. But the story is real, and the story is going to continue as long as we are able to kind of create jobs and ensure upskilling of this segment. That's it in this particular video. Thank you.